So I'm beginning with some basic numbers. If we have roughly 83,000 and some students in our district, I'm looking at our update, the document that y'all shared with us, the update page. Beginning on page 60, we have the number of empty seats in all of our schools. So my rough count tells me that we have roughly 6,888 empty seats in our district at present, and I'm happy for anyone to correct me. So I'm simply adding the 83,000 students who fill seats plus the 6,888 empty seats that we have in the district. That tells me that as a district we have facilities for 90,000 students, more or less. Is my math going all right so far?
I'm trying to find
I
where.
know,
Okay.
where do you see that?
So
Are you just adding up the
Oh,
I'm
red?
just adding them up. There you go.
Adding
There you
them.
go.
Oh, you're doing
Okay.
your addition online.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's where it takes
Okay.
others who are less mathematically
I
challenged.
didn't know
So
the question was coming, I would have started adding.
No
So let's
no
go.
problem. I'm just roughly. This is my question for us as FABPAC members. You present all these numbers to us on pages 60 and following of that update. Presuming we have some 83,000 students in the district, presuming we have some nearly 7,000 empty seats in the district, then it seems that we have as a district the ability to accommodate some 90,000 students, more or less. Am I on the right track so far?
I'm looking to Beckett District, okay?
Our demographers are telling us that at present we have more than 83,000 students. By 2025, within 10 years, we'll have about 79,500 students. They say 79,503. We're working in rough numbers this evening. What that tells me is that the enrollment is going down, roughly 3,500 more students. So currently we have 6,888 empty seats in the district. Once we take that and add 3,500 more empty seats to our stock of empty seats throughout the district, then it seems that essentially my question for y'all as FABPAC members is, I'm hearing that you're coming to us and telling us that we need 5 new schools when math suggests that we will have some 10,500 empty seats within 10 years. Can anyone take a stab at helping me understand this? If we're trying to sell a bond, if we're going out to the taxpayers of Austin and saying we need 5 new schools, this document is telling us that we need 5 new schools. My rough math is suggesting that that in 10 years we'll have 10,500 seats. I'm understanding that the seats are probably in the wrong place.
Correct. That's the simple answer, yes.
That's the simple answer.
Yes. So for example, a lot of the seats may be in East Austin or Southeast Austin, and a lot of the need is in far northwest Austin or southeast Austin or southwest Austin.
So the solution is to build schools.
Yes. A solution is to build schools.
A solution is to build
Or
schools.
additions,
Okay.
additions.
Since others on the dais are freely using the word equity, I suspect it's only right and just that I banter about the word equity as well. Last Thursday, I was meeting with friends from the Sanchez community. And in order to keep their school community alive, we have been so tremendously generous as a district by busing students to that school, some 275 students every day that we're busing to that facility. Brook Elementary, just slightly to the east of that. In order to keep that school of 269 students last year, I know it's slightly up from last year, 269 students last year, they tell me that over 200 of them were bused in. Students they were taken from their neighboring schools far away and bused into Brook. So a solution is to build new schools. That doesn't seem to be the solution that we've used in other places. What I'm hearing is an argument that the students of East Austin are somehow different. I hate to even go there. That busing is okay for students of East Austin. We bus students to Sanchez, we bus students to Brook, but busing is not okay for students in other parts of the district. It's an equity conversation that's difficult for us, and I'm not necessarily looking for an answer this evening. That is to say, it's simply something for us to be thinking about, that for us in East Austin, we've been dealing with aging schools. And when we look at this plan, as much as I love what I'm reading, there are certain things that trouble me. For us to be considering consolidating the students from one school that was built when Dwight D. Eisenhower was inaugurated as president into a school that was built during FDR's first term, there are just certain justice and equity questions that really are hanging heavy on my heart this evening. And I'm not looking for an answer this evening. I think maybe that's something to take back to the FABPAC and to discuss. What do we do? In East Austin, they're proposing taking students from a school built during Dwight D. Eisenhower's first term and putting them into a school that was built when FDR was inaugurated into office. These are just some questions that I wrestle with. I think the bottom line for me as a trustee, there's some heartburn here. And personally, I'm of the opinion that it's time for tough conversations, not tup conversations. Let me explain. TUP is a new term that we have as trustees. Since the last time that we talked about this, I don't remember the last time hearing the word TUP as part of our vocabulary. So there's this new acronym now, this Targeted Utilization Plan, which we're introducing. And my fear is that we'll make TUP decisions in order to avoid tough decisions. The math that I was pointing to before suggests that to right-size the district, it's not building 5 new schools. That's a tough conversation. Last Thursday, when I was with our friends from Sanchez and the East Cesar Chavez planning team, that was one tough conversation because they've been painted with the Scarlet Sea. They've been painted with the Scarlet Sea, as have other communities in that neighborhood. And so now the challenge for us becomes what to do with that. The TUP, I totally get. I understand that it would buy time for struggling school communities to be able to lift enrollment. Totally get that. In some ways, I feel like I'm on the same carousel as in 2014. When we first approved this master plan, we recall it was Trustee Hinojosa who said, how can we make sure that we give struggling schools time to lift their enrollment? We want to make an agreement as a board that will give us struggling schools 3 years to turn around their enrollment before we even talk about consolidation. That was in 2014. These are tough conversations, which is essentially why we were talking it with all of our friends at Sanchez last Thursday, simply because, what do we do here? Because right now the situation that it seems we're being painted into is a situation of losers, those painted with the Scarlet Sea, and winners, those school communities that sigh some relief while they know that at least they're not on the list of consolidation. And so if there's going to be equity, at least the questions that this trustee would raise would be why those 5 schools were targeted in the final TUP list with the Scarlet T, if not the Scarlet C, right? Brooke, Dawson, Jocelyn, Norman, and Sanchez. Do we let the FABPAC and the administration off this easily by simply targeting those 5? When I'm led to understand that at a March the 21st meeting, the list that was shared with FABPAC members was 23 schools that fit TUP, that fit the criteria for being a TUP school if we were to measure it by this year's enrollment rather than last year's enrollment. And so for those observers who are simply looking at the TUP list and trying to understand why are we on this list, why do we have the Scarlet Sea and these other schools don't, that list on March the 21st, it really shed some light. It showed schools that were on the under-enrolled list for 2 years in a row. Blanton, Brooke, Dobie, Jocelyn, and Sanchez. They were on the under-enrolled list for 2 years. And of those 5 schools, how many were TUP'd? 3 of them, 3 of 5. In the 3-year list was Linder, Metz, St. Elmo, and Mendez. That was longer than the 2-year TUP'd schools. And how many of them made the TUP list? 0. And then the greater than 3-year list, so as if 2 years were not bad enough, as if 3 years were not bad enough, on the 3 or more year list of under-enrolled schools, Blackshear, Campbell, Cunningham, Dawson, Norman, Wynn, Zavala, Covington, Garcia, Martin, Sadler Means, Crockett, Eastside Memorial High School. This is the tough conversation. That was 13 schools. And how we chose 2 of them to be TUP'd is a question I think that is worthy of at least some consideration. So as the carousel goes around again, for those of us who think that we're in the same spot that we were in 2014, the question is anything different this time around? That is to say, now that these schools have been tupped, what does that mean? Does that mean, I ask because when I was with our friends from Dawson, Dawson had the Scarlet C several months ago, and the teacher said, you know, we are working our tails off with these kids. Marketing is not our background. We are teachers. And yet we're expected to market this school when we're not teaching at this school. So my question for our administration and anyone else wrapping their minds around this issue is, what commitment are we going to make to 23 tuppable schools? We're inventing words as we go here. 23 schools that should be on the TUP list, it seems, if the criteria were based on this year's enrollment. That's 23 schools where we're looking at having to turn around the enrollment situation. That's a considerable investment of resources by our district. I'll come back to that in a moment. So Sanchez, and also as we're talking about all these projects, I just have to say I love the dreamers that all of us are in this room, especially FABPAC members. But when I hear $37 million that's going to add to M&O, that's a cause for concern. Maybe if our CFO has a calculator near her, I'd simply like to know $37 million, how many students it would take to bring $37 million into our district if we're talking about needing to supplement $37 million of M&O. Do we have a rough figure? You look like you're doing the math in your head. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So we were having a tough conversation, not a tough conversation because I hadn't heard about this yet on Thursday. We were having a tough conversation at Sanchez and essentially saying we're in a tough spot here because some of us are painted as losers with the Scarlet C. Some of us are painted as winners, as the receiving schools, even if we were built during the first term of FDR, even if we've had lead in our pipes or whatever other challenges we have in our schools. We have winners and losers, and so the question for us becomes, how do we work on a solution for this? I'd like to report that's a group that's willing to work to achieve a win-win-win situation. We need to think about our district. How do we create a win for our district? We need to think about the taxpayers of Austin. How do we create a win for the taxpayers of Austin? I'm not sure that what we're seeing here is a win in light of the need for right sizing that the numbers suggest we need. And also a win for the students and families involved. I told them what we need to be working on right now in East Austin is a win-win-win-win situation for the students and families of Sanchez, Metz, Zavala, and Brook, all four of them so close together. When we were doing the rough math on Thursday evening, if we were to take out all the students who are currently being bused away from their neighborhood schools, if we were to take a look at the demographic projections for 10 years from now, we'll have a total of 280 students coming from those school attendance zones, 280 students for 4 schools. Those are tough conversations. Be happy to invite anyone who wants to help wrap his or her mind around this, the challenges that we're having. We're going to pull together representatives of all 4 school communities on April the 6th, 6:30 to 8. We'll make sure that we publish these out at Brook Elementary. April the 27th at Zavala, May the 4th at Sanchez, May the 18th at Metz, simply so that we're bringing 4 school communities together to talk about how do we create a win-win-win-win situation for the students and families of Metz and Sanchez and Zavala and Brook, but also a win for our district and a win for the taxpayers of Austin. And I'm not sure that investing in aging facilities built during the first term of FDR, whether that's creating a win for the taxpayers of Austin. I'm not sure if it's reinventing the urban school experience. The sign that we have that says we're reinventing, it doesn't say maintaining the status quo. It doesn't say stretching ourselves so thin that we can't cover obligations. How are we going to be reinventing what it is that we're doing here? I think I'll conclude with that. I think my hope for the Facilities Master Plan and for any bond that comes before the voters of Austin who are going to help us with the math, and the media who will gladly help us with the math when it comes to the time for that, my hope is that we at least divide our Facilities Master Plan, if not our bond, into various parts that we as trustees can approve or not, because there are some things that many of us just want to approve, right? Rosedale, anytime we go to Rosedale and see our students at Rosedale, I just think our hearts say it is right, it is just for us to help these students at Rosedale. LASA, when I hear our students at LASA, I told them this week, Representative LASA, if I were a student, I'd be a LASA kid. How do we help LASA, for instance, to have a centrally located school, which is their desire, but also knowing that brings 1,600 empty seats into our district. So there are certain things that I certainly want to support, that we certainly want to support, but at the same time, there are other things that will make the taxpayers and the voters of Austin balk, if not the trustees on this dais. So it's simply the need to think through some of those issues. I apologize that I didn't include more questions as part of my comments, but more than anything, I put them out there simply for our FABPAC to continue thinking through them and to think through the challenges that lie ahead. If you want to sell us on the fact that we need 5 new schools and we're going to have over 10,000 empty seats in this district, that's tough for those of us in East Austin who've grown accustomed to being bussed away from our neighborhood schools. That's tough. Thank you all for your work.
Okay. So maybe we can comment on a few of those things.
Sure.
One, maybe more a question. So do you want us to do the math on the busing if we were to bus from the southwest and the southeast and the northwest to those underutilized schools to contemplate that as an option?
I would leave that for the FABPAC. So that is, it's been okay for us to bus East Austin students, but I'm hearing that it's not okay. I'm hearing that we need to build schools. I'm hearing that we need to build schools in certain
I just wanted to
parts of
make
the
sure,
city.
because you said a lot, and I wanted to make sure that what was implied was busing from other parts of the district where there's overcrowding to the underutilized schools.
Busing has been a solution. We say that building new
Okay.
schools is a solution. Busing is the solution that we've used in East Austin.
One of the things that we struggle with, I can't remember what came up for Sadler Means, maybe, we were talking about proposing busing as a way to, because it's not currently offered to those students, and then we wanted to help increase enrollment, in that area, was also the impact on the whole neighborhood model. And so it's deciding, are we trying to keep kids in their neighborhoods for the most part? Some parents are choosing to drive them to other schools. Or do we want to bus them from one part of the city, to the other? So I think that's something the board's going to have to, talk about as well. But if you want us to contemplate, we don't have a meeting between now and when you vote next week, so I guess you'll have to let us know if that's critical. I don't know that we'll be able to do open meetings, requirements. But Nicole, I don't know if you want to comment on the busing as we talked about it as an option, but it certainly came up in some of the community engagement meetings. It wasn't the first time we're hearing it tonight, so.
Well, you know that the substantial costs associated with busing, we're trading out one operational impact for another, so we'd have to consider and quantify that. Obviously, we already spend nearly $30 million on busing across the district, so to the extent that we open that up even more for crosstown routes, I can see that the cost for that would be considerable. We are aware of instances on the east side. Certainly, there's the temporary change with the Linder kiddos in the east side, but I'd have to go back and look at where we are busing kids across the district to sort of see if we could bring that back into alignment as a way to satisfy some of their overcrowding needs. I do think it would be a substantial impact to the district if we started busing to address some of the overcrowded areas, because where we see overcrowding, the need for seats is so extensive, right? You're looking at places where we have to literally add 300 to 400 new seats of students in order to address those capacity issues. And so we would be increasing routes substantially to move them into receptive campuses, which I think would be very costly for the district, but we can certainly quantify that.
My neighbors in East Austin say we have lived for years in East Austin without sidewalks, and we never got sidewalks in our neighborhood until a certain other person started moving into the neighborhood. In East Austin, we have bused our students away from their neighborhood schools. At what point will we say enough of that? At what point will we get the sidewalks and stop the busing of our students in East Austin?
The other point that you raised that I just wanted to address, it wasn't just hanging out there, you made an implication about LBJ and what would be left at LBJ if LASA was removed and moved to another campus, but the recommendation.
Okay.
Maybe I'm reading between the lines too
there you
much.
go.
But you made an implication about a movement of LASA, but what was going to be left behind, so I guess I read into that.
We would have
There
to
was a
worry.
concern.
While I do want to, I'm extremely supportive of LASA. What we have to realize is then we're building a facility for 1,600 more students, so that presumably that does mean more empty seats at LBJ and or throughout the district when we're drawing students
Right.
away from those schools to a new facility.
And I won't get into the
last time, so-
details, but there is the recommendation for LBJ does account for that, and actually a reallotment to 1,000 students at that facility based on the career launch and some of the realignment of rooms that are happening. So there's going to be a redesign there. So that correlation to say X minus Z is something is really not the right way to be thinking about it because of the way LBJ's redesign reinvention is going to happen, or at least what's proposed to happen. So those details are on the one pager. So I just wanted to make sure that the community understood that there's a lot of plans for what would happen at LBJ, and actually what's currently happening at LBJ regardless.
What I'm understanding is we will have 10,500 empty seats in the district to fill in 10 years without building new schools.
Right.
The question that I have is how are we going to
Yeah,
fill
the seats are
10,500
right.
seats? And let's not rely on our teachers to do, our teachers are teaching. Let's let them do their job. Let's find a way, if we're going to deal with filling those seats, let's find a way for us to invest in the necessary resources to do that.
Right.
Or if not, then maybe it's time for us, instead of having tough conversations, to have some tough
Yeah, maybe
conversations.
consolidation could be an option for some of those communities too.
Thank you all.
Trustee Tyke.
I'll keep this fairly short since obviously the voice is going. So, I appreciate all the comments and questions of my fellow trustees. My major concern right now is what is best for our kids.